Hi there, this is Prague Talk, a podcast from Radio Prague International. My name is Ian Willoughby. My guest this time is the well-known Czech journalist Lukáš Dolanský. Until the summer of this year, Lukáš served as Czech Television's correspondent in the United Kingdom. And he underwent something of a baptism of fire in the posting, arriving only days before the death of Queen Elizabeth II. That's among many stories that Lukáš Dolanský recounts in a new book, The Colours of London, and is one of the many things we discuss in this edition of Prague Talk. Lukáš, you started in print media, in written media, before you moved to Czech TV, where you were successful presenting a kind of late night news discussion show. But then, about 8 or 9 years ago, when you were about 40, I guess, you decided you wanted to be a foreign correspondent. What led you to want to be a foreign correspondent?
The answer is quite simple because it's in those words that you already used. I worked as a print journalist or in a print media, and I was actually doing politics 15 years. I spent 13 years in the parliament. I was accredited as a parliament journalist, and I did quite enjoy it, I have to say. But after a while, I thought that I could do a small step beyond. But I still, because I wasn't a foreign correspondent before, what I thought, and I think my thoughts were right, that Brussels and the Brussels politics are actually very much connected to domestic affairs. And that was my presentation, so to speak, or my idea, which I came up to my bosses. And I said, look, I think the domestic correspondent should go to Brussels and work those domestic affairs just in Brussels. And they said, well, it's quite an interesting idea, so maybe we can work on it. I waited 5 years for that, but afterwards it did happen. And I started something, I think, because the other guys now, like Petr Obrovský or other guys, were not foreign correspondents as well before. And I think it was very, very useful to know how the politics works, not to be the foreign correspondent, but be, the politic correspondent in domestic affairs and work in Brussels. I knew all those politicians and I could talk to them quite easily. So it was. I think it was a good idea, and I did enjoy it. A part of the Brussels, I have to say.
Well, tell me about the posting. Was it enjoyable to any degree, or?
I loved the work because there was something what I was used to, I wanted to do. And it was very interesting, even though it was very complicated, as Brussels is. I didn't like the city. I have to say that. I did not enjoy Brussels. But as people say, there's one great thing about Brussels is that you can leave the city in just a few minutes. And in a couple hours, you are in Amsterdam, in Paris, anywhere. So it's a great point to be. But to be quite honest, I did not really like the city, to be quite honest.
Well, in 2002, you went to London, moved to London as correspondent in the UK. Was London a place that you actively wanted to go to?
I was so surprised because, as I said, I was not, or I didn't work as a foreign correspondent before. So after 5 years in Brussels, and I thought that will be it, that we will be returning. My bosses asked me, well, what about London? And I said, well, that's, part of my heart because I did study in London before. I can't say no. And we talked about it at home and we decided, okay, let's try that. And that was like my first real foreign post. It was interesting. I did really enjoy the city and the culture and everything, even though I was quite surprised. And I did have a culture shock, even though I thought that I know the city and I know the country. But I did study there 20 years ago, and UK changed quite a lot. So that was quite surprising.
What was so different?
From my perspective, UK is not doing really well at the moment. There's not really good atmosphere. Prices are so high. Energy prices are so high, and you can really feel it. Like there's not like really positive spirit among the people. And it's not only because of Brexit, but it is also because of Brexit, and it's. Of course, the energy prices are high because of the situation in Ukraine. COVID did hit UK very well, or very hard. So these small thingies, I would say, put together a perspective which I was quite surprised when we were leaving. There's so many like regular people, parents of my kids, who were saying, "Well, you're leaving. We understand." And this was a bit surprising, even though I have to say that UK is really strong and really big economy, and they can handle it quite well. But I was quite surprised, I have to say.
How did Brexit complicate your life? Because you arrived a couple of years after it came into effect, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, the first thing, I needed a visa. And I couldn't get it. I applied. I paid loads of money for that, which is part of trying to get the visa now. And I was waiting 4 months or something like that. It was incredible. It was meant to be done in 3 weeks, but we really waited so long. And I did actually arrive without visa, and I got it after a couple of weeks. So that was the first thing. And another thing, the visa meant that our stay is terminated. Right after 3 years, we had to leave, basically, or I could apply for extension, but we decided not to apply, and we decided to return. So these were like small things that really changed our existence in the UK.
On the work front, soon after you arrived, one of the biggest stories to happen in the UK in decades happened: the death of the Queen.
Oh, that was something. It was 11 days after I arrived. We still did have all the things in boxes, in one huge room, or in the living room piled. I had like one jacket and one shirt and one tie, which I was using before because, as you remember, the government just fell down. And there was, some tricky things with Boris Johnson and stuff. So I said, okay, now it's done. Now I can concentrate on my family and everything I need to be concentrated on. And suddenly my editor called me and said, well, there's some bad news. I think you should, get in front of the Buckingham Palace and be ready. So we did. We went there, and it was a really strange moment, I have to say, because Queen was still, it was announced that she's just getting worse, but not that the situation happened to her. So we thought, okay, now we have a couple of days, but we did not. We have just a couple of minutes, so to speak.
And it happened, if I understood right from your book, during the main news on Czech TV.
It
you
did.
Got the news?
Yes, it was 7:00 here in the Czech Republic, 6:00 in UK, and my first live presentation was about, I don't remember well, but I think it was like 7:11 or something like that. And the question was quite simple. So how is she doing? And I said, well, the thing is that the Buckingham Palace just posted, or during the day posted a news that she is not doing well, but, she's stabilized and everything. And I was standing there still. I was waiting in front of the Buckingham Palace, and there was like huge crews everywhere. Like there was hundreds, maybe thousands of journalists prepared for the moment, which everyone was like kind of knowing that it's going to happen. And then I realized after a few minutes that the flag just went down, and all the phones started beeping, and everyone was getting the news that she passed away. So during the news, they just said, we have to go back to UK, and I just said the news. Yeah.
How did you go about doing all the organizational thing? I guess you had to secure places to shoot from and all that kind of thing. Do a lot of reporting, interviewing people and so on, and doing live reports on Czech TV. How did you manage all that logistically?
Well, I was quite used to it from Brussels, because now the technology is good. It's quite easy, so you can even do a live transmission with a telephone. During the COVID, my cameraman or camera person was sick, so for a week I had to do all the lives and everything just from my phone. And to be quite honest, I think that not really people saw the difference. Nothing against my camera person, but of course it was better with him, I have to say. So these things are now very quick and also demanding, because like here in Prague, everyone knows that you can do the live in a couple of minutes. So they just call you, and it's like in 30 minutes, be live. Which a couple of years ago, you have to pay for the satellites, you have to order everything. It was like ages, and it was so expensive. But being there, and that's your question, you are quite alone. You're just like a lonely soldier doing everything. You have to, find the stories, you have to talk to people, you have to persuade people to talk to you, which is the worst thing ever in the UK, because no one really wants to talk to Czech television, apart of galleries or everything which they think that might, attract some Czech viewers or Czech tourists. So to get to, for example, to any politicians, and I think it's very, very tricky and very hard. And then you have to just do the work. They just tell you. You have, like they tell you here in Prague, in redaction, you have like 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then do a story for the main evening news, and you just have to do it.
There's one amusing detail to me in the book that there were some like royal experts walking around offering to give interviews to TV journalists for money.
Yes, they are.
And carrying their books to prove that they were
They really were.
experts.
There was one, I don't remember his name, but there was one guy. And he really did that, He was just like, I'm an expert. And I saw him in different TVs afterwards. And he apparently wrote some book, but then he was like getting the attraction, or was trying to attract the TV crews. And the thing is, which I was writing in the book also, which is, it was quite surprising to me, but it's apparently thing in British kind of media area in the UK that you pay for the interviews.
And the famous John Bercow, the former speaker, famous for saying order, he was also charging.
Yeah, well, he wanted to charge. We couldn't pay, so we didn't get the interview. But truth is, and I have to say that he was not, at the time that we requested the interview, that he was not the head of the parliament, right? He was not active politician. He was retiring, so okay, maybe it was part of his income. But then when he realized that it would be a TV interview, he just said, I want money for my time, or his people said that.
Typically, what were the British news stories that your editors here were interested in?
That's a good question, because sometimes I felt that, I was really into, or everyone living in the area, every foreign correspondent is really into those things that are happening there. So, I thought this is a big story, and I called, my editors, and they said, well, that's not really issue for the Czech audience. So what I tried, well, of course, like politics, if it was big, it was about Brexit, which is kind of funny because I met a guy from Dutch media, I think it was some kind of a Dutch newspaper. And he said, well, I'm here quite new. And when I arrived, my editors told me, do everything about Brexit. We don't care about anything else. Just do Brexit stories, how Brexit wrongly affected UK. So I didn't have to do that, but Brexit was always something which my editors were interested in. Politics also, but small things which you couldn't see sometimes here in the news outlets outside, like expensive water, the pollution in Thames River, for example, which was kind of a story I was doing a couple of times. I did like to do so-called soft stories. I did loads of like culture stories because I thought it's interesting and it's nice to film and you can experience something. So what you basically do, you write your stories down, you send it to the executives, and they said, yeah, we want this, we don't want this, do this and do that. And it's not like the decision would be only theirs, but mainly they decide what's being broadcast.
Over the years, a few times I've been to London on reporting assignments for Radio Prague International, and I always found the most enjoyable part was getting to speak to older Czech people, maybe who went in 48 or whenever, 68 even, who had great stories. I presume you also met some great older Czechs in the UK.
I did. I do recall really interesting filming with, for example, the children of Vinton's children, so to speak, or how they are called. We actually did a story with, I think, 7 of the last remaining Vinton children. These people were really interesting, fluent in Czech and full of memories. It was really interesting. And I was quite fortunate that I was able to speak to the last Czech soldier fighting in the Second World War. He was a 104 years old gentleman, not speaking Czech for, 60 years, but fluent. The interview was in Czech. He wanted to speak in Czech. And he was speaking about his experience, which was quite interesting because he was kind of forgotten. Because he left the UK for, I think, last 20 years. And, army officials here in the Czech Republic basically forgot about him. And when he returned, that someone found out that, there's this guy still living there. So we were actually, a couple of months before he died, had the chance to interview. And it was really interesting, really interesting.
And his name was Erwin?
Hojda. Yeah, Erwin Hojda. And it was a really interesting interview. I was thinking back. Yeah.
And he was in Liverpool.
Yes, he lived in Liverpool. Yeah.
Did you get to travel much outside London to report?
We did, but as you know, traveling around UK is not really easy task.
And crazy expensive.
It's crazy,
right? The
yeah.
trains.
Well, not only expensive, but just to get outside of London, it takes 2 hours, right? So to get somewhere and then get back, it was so complicated that we did, of course, travel, and we traveled to Scotland as well. And I was doing reporting from Northern Ireland as well, which was quite interesting because of Brexit, for example, which was quite a big story. So we did travel, but not as much as maybe I would love to. Yeah.
I guess you didn't have much time to go to the pub when you were in London. You had 3 kids and were super busy. But when you did go to the pub, what did you drink?
I did drink beer, and I did drink ale, I have to say, even though when my father-in-law came to London and he asked for a beer, and I said, what kind of beer do you want? And he said, well, what they drink here. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, of course. So I brought him nice pint of ale without foam, and he was saying, what's that? And he said, well, that's what you asked for. And then he drank it and said, why does it taste like soap? And I said, well, that's how it is. But I did quite get used to some nice ales, even though that I still did discover a few pubs with Czech Pilsner. And, when I was really sorrow and something, so I, just sneaked in and I said, well, can I have 1 Pilsner, please?
How much did you like London after 3 years of living there and working there?
I loved it. I did love the city. I was very fortunate and very happy that I could have this experience, not only to live there, but to be, so to speak, eyes for my audience or for the Czechs, and that I could work there. And I don't want, that this would sound harsh or anything, but I'm happy I don't have to live there, because the first thing I realized, the life here is so much easier, nicer. And I'm not talking about only the weather and the beer, right? But we just realized as a family, you ask me how London changed. For example, London's dangerous. I have 3 kids. You mentioned it, and I never let my kids, travel their own. A part of just walking to school. But I wasn't able to just let my daughter, in the evening go in the city, and she didn't want to go. We have no problems with that here in Prague. We are fortunate here, I have to say.
And your kids went to state schools?
Yes, they did. And they were kind of surprised because in Brussels they attend semi-private English school, because we didn't know, or we didn't thought that we will be continuing with our travel. So I thought, okay, I'm going to put them not in French-speaking school, but let's put them in Brussels in English-speaking school so they can learn English. So afterwards, when they traveled to UK, they knew English quite well, and they went to regular public school, and it was a bit shocked, I have to say. It was different, and you will probably ask me how different it was. It was, we have to, for example, my daughter, a couple weeks after we arrived, she wanted to switch the school because there was even some, kids were quite rude to her. So afterwards, she changed the school. And even though they were doing quite well and the schools were nice, it was just different, and we realized when we returned back that they had to really study hard to get on the level of education they need for their education or continuing their education here in the Czech schools here.
And generally, how was the adjustment for them, or how has it been since they came back after, 8 years away?
Well, hard. The biggest example probably, or the best example, is my son, which is 11, Matěj. And he left when he was 3. So he started to learn, not even writing, but the language properly. And English is now his first language, as well as the other kids. So they actually had to learn a foreign language called Czech, even though we spoke Czech at home and they understand Czech quite well. But we just realized that it's hard to continue the education in the Czech language while when is it second language for them. So this was the biggest obstacle for them, and still is. and they're fighting, but he's asking me every day, like, what means this word and what means this word. And then he realized how within the schools here, the Czech schools, some of the words they use are not spoken anymore, and they just have like this math exam with the word kind of examination, and there are words which are not used to because you don't use them in regular language. So it's quite tough, I have to say, but they're just fighting. They have to fight. They fought 8 years, so they have to fight now.
Also, they'll have great English their whole lives, right? So that's a plus.
Yeah, but they need Czech as well, right? So they have to learn this language.
I can easily imagine your book being in many people's Christmas gifts, and the Asia Czech will be delivering it around the country. I think that Czechs have a very positive attitude to the UK. Is that what you found?
They do, yes. It's quite interesting how we are focused to the UK. It was quite interesting because I was talking to some, I think it was an ambassador actually here in Prague, and he asked me why there's so many news coming from the UK, or like why we report so much about UK life and not, for example, about France or Germany. And I think it's English, because when someone speaks in those news offices, they speak English. There are not too many people who speak German or French, which is kind of pity. So we are very much focused on, and it's very easy to sit and translate news from BBC and do that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think there's some kind of fascination with the UK. And you would understand what I'm saying when I say that the Brits are very good at promoting their culture and their life, right? From the David Beckham's left foot to James Bond to Paddington to everything, like Harry Potter. So it's fascinating. And I was speaking to so many Czechs who were like, oh, London, we love London. And I say, I love London as well. London is a great place to stay or to visit or to be a couple of weeks. But it's not really a cool place to live all your life, I have to say that. So why is it? I think it's also a history, because, since Karel Čapek was fascinated with the UK, and UK was something like a fascinating place, a unique place, and it's still a bit different to Europe.
But didn't you say that Čapek didn't like it there?
Yeah, well, that's what I found out, actually, that he was kind of scared. He did like London. He was a bit happy in when he visited Scotland, right? He was happy in Scotland, but in London he was scared, from all the traffic, for the noise, so many people, and he was saying like, horrible kind of huge buses with so many people. And truth is, this was for me also the first thing which I realized, and I realized I forgot it. How many people are there? You just can't walk a street without bouncing to another to another person all the time. There's so many people there.
Would you say that there are any common misconceptions that Czechs have about the UK? Things they don't understand or don't recognize or don't know?
Maybe the question would be the other way around, because I think the Brits has quite a small understanding about Czechs, and that's what I was quite realizing, that you ask about the schools, and I would say most of the kids, or for example, my daughter's schoolmates didn't know where the Czech Republic is. Right, they were so surprised. Back to your question, I think that Czechs are a little bit idolizing UK, because they see what I was saying. David Beckham, left foot, and the history and music,
the royal family,
of course, and all the glamour, and when you visit London and you see, all there's everything, all the museums, all the galleries, everything which is being there. But then, and that was my kind of task, and that's what I tried also to present a little bit. There's a life underneath of this kind of touristic view on UK. And that's the situation, which is at the moment not really easy for Brits to be in. Yeah.
Well, I guess, Lukáš, we're running out of time. Good luck with the book, and good luck with your return to Czechia.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
And Lukáš Dolanský's book, The Colours of My London, Barvy mého Londýna, is out now in Czech on the Argo imprint. If you enjoyed my chat with Lukáš and are new to Prague Talk, why not check out some of the earlier editions and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Prague Talk is a podcast from Radio Prague International. My name is Ian Willoughby. Thank you so much indeed for listening, and talk to you again very soon.